that. Okay, and then we've got more people coming in. And I want to try and close the waiting room. Or open the waiting room, I guess. Okay. Here comes Emily. I'm just gonna wait for them to get connected, maybe. Yes. Oh, Emily's here with us twice. Okay, so I'd love to start off just with some introductions, if that feels okay to everyone, just so we can, since this is a fairly intimate space where we're just going to be sharing and learning, it's nice to get to know each other first. So I have a sense that people are going to be coming in during this part. So maybe I'll write in the chat, hi, Ashley. Oh my goodness, it's so good to see your face. I didn't recognize your last name.
I know. So good to see you.
Oh, yay. Oh, it makes my heart. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. I am, what am I doing? I'm opening the chat and I'm just going to write in the chat things that we can share. So let's share our name, our location. I use that loosely. Some people like to talk about their like home, like where they're from. Some people like to talk about where they are. Some people like to mention both. Whatever is great. Pronouns are helpful. And let's see, maybe just first impression of this again, for those who weren't here when I said this already, there's no test about whether you finished this or anything like that, but just we're using this as inspiration. So maybe like first impression or like what stuck with you from anything that you've gathered from this Gifts of Imperfection journey. Whatever you've taken in of that. So that's in the chat. And anyone feel brave, feel called to kick us off? Any of our extroverts willing to start with introduction? Go right ahead. Jackie, thank you.
I'm definitely not an extrovert though.
Okay, noted.
I'm Jackie. I live in the Bay Area. And how does my brain already forget things? One moment. Okay, my pronouns are she, her, hers. And my first impression is, okay, so I have heard a lot about this book before. I have friends who it was like they're going into their midlife crisis book reading. So I had all these different initial impressions that were totally thrown when I read the book. It wasn't what I had expected. And it's just so contrary to the way that I approach the world. So I was just kind of shook by reading the book. And yeah, I think that it does resonate in my life because there are a lot of things that I try to incorporate in life, like leading with love and, having a lot of playful aspects in my life and how I engage and who I choose to engage with and all of that. So it was like I related very closely. And then at the same time, I was like, what is this person talking about? So that's how I felt about the book.
I love knowing that. And I'm so curious. I hope you'll share with us, Jackie, as we go along, some of those things that shook you or that were like, what the heck? Because that's where the juicy stuff is, I feel like. Awesome. How does everybody feel about just me following the order on the screen from Jackie on? Does that feel okay? Yeah. Sometimes I hate deciding when I'm going to chime in, and it makes me anxious just to think about that. So, okay. Well, I'll go next since I'm next on the screen. I'm Bree Cross Caldwell. I'm in Portland, Oregon. Pronouns are, I use she, her, and they, theirs interchangeably. So you can use any of those for me. And this book, I've read it a couple of times and I just reread it for this. And to be honest, this recent time when I read it, I was like, I can't remember. I didn't remember that this was in here. It was like things that the first time I read it, I was like, this is great. This is really good information. And this time I was like, Oh God, that, like, somehow I missed this last time. So it felt a little more impactful. I think especially those pieces pointed to where like my own personal growth in the last year or two has been. And so I think I'm just more aware of some of these lessons. Yeah, so I'm excited to get into those specifics and hear from you all how it was for you. Okay, next on my screen is Jamie.
Hello, I am Jamie Powell. I am from Omaha, Nebraska. I go by she, her. So I have been interpreting for DBT lately, and that is by Marsha Lanahan. And so her and Brené are they're kind of the same. And so it was kind of interesting to hear Brené's as I've been also working with the Marsha, because they kind of are similar. And so what struck me was when I actually interpreting, but then listening for it as for myself, I didn't realize where I fell on the scale. Because, as you interpret, you listen and you let go, you listen and you let go. But then when you take the test, you're kind of in shock of where you fall. And so I was straight down the middle when I took the test. And that was kind of shocking for me. I thought I would kind of be more towards one side or the other. And I was kind of in shock that I was straight down the middle. So I have a lot to work on to get towards one side. So that was kind of shocking for me. Yeah.
That's so interesting. After we're done with introductions, I have a poll where I'm gonna have you all, we can all say like which ones were our, I don't know about lowest, but like on that letting go of side of the scale, like the things maybe that we're working on more. And so I'm curious to see, but Jamie, you can check them all if you want.
Straight down, like I couldn't even tell like which one was more or less because it was straight down the middle. It was very odd. Very
You're
odd.
well balanced. Like it's like
I wish I was well balanced.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So
Thanks
odd.
for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is it Ellie? Am I saying that right? Yeah. You want to go next?
Yes. Hi. Excuse me. I have horrible allergies. Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And I am pretty much the exact opposite of, I think it was Jackie who said, I kind of knew who Brené Brown was. I had never heard of this book. I'm like, yeah, she's that self-help person. Like I didn't really even kind of know who she was. And so reading it, I'm very skeptical of self-help, just kind of in general. And I liked that she included like data and information. And like, it's not just, I was sad once and now I'm happy and here's how I did it, which is how I feel a lot of self-help is. And it was very much like I polled 100 people who talked about wholeheartedness and here's kind of what they said. And I really appreciated that aspect of it. And so it made me feel a little bit more like, okay, this is something that I can aspire to, even if my life is not identical to the author's, which is where I struggle with a lot of self-help stuff. So I liked it a lot and I wasn't really coming in with any particular conceptions either way, but I thought it was eye-opening.
Awesome. I love that you came in as a skeptic. I think a lot of people that I gravitate towards are already in the like Brené Brown fan club. So it's great to have you coming in and saying like, where's the data that backs this up? And she is a researcher, like that is her profession. And so knowing that this stuff is all backed by research is really meaningful to me too. Yeah, I love that. Sweet. Jonathan.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Robinson. I live and work in Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, Oregon, or the greater Portland area. And I was exposed to Brené Brown probably like 8 years ago or so on TED. I forget which year it was, but it was on TEDx or TED Talks. That's kind of where she blew up. And I remember that talk when I watched it on YouTube was like a game changer. And since then, I've watched her a lot on YouTube and on podcasts, and I read about half of Daring Greatly, which is a really good book. I'd love to finish that. So when I saw this workshop come out, I was like, I have to do this. And it's just good timing. I think it's exactly what I need right now. The whole idea of living wholehearted is pretty powerful, because for me, it seems so hard. I've lived most of my life not wholehearted. I think I'm starting to realize. And so I think it's challenging me exactly where I need to be challenged. And I did the inventory twice. I did it before I read the book, and then I listened to the audiobook. And then I just did it today again after I finished the audiobook. And I had some differences. There's a couple of the scales that slide a little bit in the one direction or the other. But I found the inventory to be pretty accurate to who I think I am as a person. Yeah, I had a really good time listening to the book. I could listen to it all day because her voice is so soothing and calm, and she's such an easy listen. So I really appreciated that. If you haven't heard the audiobook, I highly recommend it. So
Thanks for that, Jonathan. I agree. I listened also, and I just love your honesty, and I found myself really resonating with what you said about the ways that you've noticed that you maybe haven't lived wholeheartedly. And yeah, I really resonate with that too. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. Catherine.
Hey guys, my pronouns are she, her, and I am currently located in St. Louis, Missouri. I kind of go between Missouri and Illinois because I'm right on that border. I had not, I feel so out of it. I had not heard of Brené Brown until this, but I love reading, and I was more history than y'all needed to know. I was very much raised with no emotion, was not allowed for emotions. And so I still find that I struggle to look at things with my heart in this and not just this. It's always this. So looking at this wholehearted living, I mean, I was highlighting stuff back in the preface. Like page 2, I'd already started highlighting stuff. So because I'm going through it so slowly, like I'll read something and then I'll go back, and then I'll read something and go back, just because I'm like trying to take so much of it in. So I'm not done with the book. And I know when I am done, I love the idea of going and doing the inventory again. Phenomenal idea. So once I get done with the book, I think I want to do that. But yeah, I mean, I have 600 notes and I'm not done yet. I'm just like highlighting. So this really just putting this different perspective and looking at something with fresh eyes and looking at it from the heart instead of just everything being logic is very cool for me. So that's kind of where I'm at. So.
Yay. Thank you for sharing that, Catherine. And I just want to say, not too much information. This is exactly the space for that, because that's what makes this stuff meaningful. Is like, this isn't just about us as interpreters, it's about us as human beings and all of us. So thank you for being willing to share that. That's a really important part of your experience. Yeah. Ashley.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley, and I live in Portland. I work in Portland and the surrounding area. I go by she, her, hers, and I thought I knew Brené Brown, and I'm pretty sure I've heard a podcast or two with her, but I had a completely different vision of who she was in my mind. And then I saw her on YouTube while I was reading this book, and I was just, I don't know, it was just interesting to see my perception of her. Like the picture I had of her in my mind was so different than who she is. Kind of like Sharon Salzberg. Have you read her books? You know, I listen to her voice and to her readings, and I imagine her looking a certain way, and then I see her on YouTube like, whoa, okay, completely different than what I was expecting. But anyways, I loved the book, and just like you, Catherine, I had to go back and take a lot of notes and reread passages because it was very like big concept, very deep. Yeah, it caused me to think a lot about myself. And so it takes time to digest. I love all of her stories. I felt she's very relatable. And sometimes these big concepts are really hard, they're very abstract. And so I loved all of her accompanying examples and her personal stories. It really hit home for me, some of her stories. It's like, yeah, I felt that too. And I've never really labeled some of my experiences as shame. But after listening to her personal, digesting of what happened to her, I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe there are some shame moments in my life. And I just never accurately named them while it was happening. So yeah, it's been really nice, very healing book.
That's a great word for it, healing. She has such a beautiful way with offering her own, like being so vulnerable with her own stories and her own life. Like she's often the example that she'll use as like, this is what it looks like when we are totally human. I so appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley. Emily.
Yes, hello. I did join twice. Sorry, I wanted to be able to listen through the headphones, but I don't have a webcam. So I use she, her pronouns, and I live in the Salt Lake City area in Utah. And I was not that familiar with Brené Brown either. Like I had heard of her, and a lot of my coworkers talk about her, and like her podcast is so great, but I just hadn't really taken the time. And this workshop I stumbled across like at a perfect moment when I was really struggling with some things in my career, and like it just felt like it spoke to me, and I was like, I think that they designed this for me because this is where I'm struggling. So I'm really glad for the timeliness of it. And I chose to listen to the audiobook, which I don't regret at all, but I listened to it, like I binged it. So I've been done with the book for a long time. Not that it's reflected in my course answers and stuff like that. But I do feel like I want to go back and purchase the book, because like people mentioning that they reread and made notes and stuff, like it's hard to do that with an audiobook. And so some of the things that felt like really impactful, I don't even remember what they were at this point because I didn't write it down. I didn't have a way to flag the page. So also I appreciate whoever mentioned the workbook was available, because that feels like a really good idea. Maybe I'll go back and do that in addition to buying the book so that I can maybe digest it in smaller chunks a second time. But as I've been listening to everybody, people have mentioned things that I was already kind of thinking, like how her examples about shame are maybe broader than what I would have thought shame to mean, and more applicable to me than I would have admitted before. So I appreciated that aspect of the book. And then also the wholehearted living inventory. I am not straight down the middle. I am like to the end on a few and like barely registering on a few others. And that it wasn't really surprising, like the ones that were, needs improvement or whatever, how she describes it. Like, I think I was only surprised by how much I could work on those, not that those were the lowest ones. And I love the idea. I think, was it Jonathan who said he took it a second time? I love that idea. So thank you for sharing that as well. But I'm just happy to be here. And yeah, whoever's the mastermind, is it you, Bree? But I appreciate it because, like I said, it was really timely, and it's helped me work through some things that needed working through.
I'm so glad. Welcome, Emily.
And I can't hear you.
Can you now?
Yes.
Oh no. Can you hear me now? Anyone? Okay. Can you now, Emily? Okay, good. I'm so glad that this felt so timely, and I am not a mastermind, but I did put this together, and mostly I do these because I need this stuff and I need this with other people. So thank you all for sharing who you are and your first impressions of this, and some really honest stuff here. I'm thinking next, and this hour always goes so fast, so we're almost halfway through it, but of putting up the poll, just in terms, I just want to see like where we are. And I wish I did this right before we got on, because I was like, I want to see what people like, where kind of we fall as a group and maybe where to focus. But I wish I would have also done a poll for the ones that we were like closer on the cultivating side. I didn't. I just did the poll for the letting go of side. So we'll just take it as we got it here. But I'm going to put the poll up on the screen. Let's see. Okay, can you see that? And check all the ones that you feel like you're maybe even just not based on the test, but just personally, like, what do you feel like you're most working on? I don't know if you guys can you see the percentages as they're coming in?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. When everybody's in, then I'll show it. One more. Oh, it's probably Emily's other line. So I'm just gonna end it. Okay.
Ooh,
There.
okay.
Now
I
can you
see it.
see? Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, wait, what? Interpreters are perfectionists? Huh?
What?
Shocking.
Wait, interpreters overwork? What's that about?
So no one had being cool, always in
Yeah.
control, or like we've got values. We know we're not cool, so we're fine. We're not attached to that.
I know I'm weird. It's fine.
Right. It's sort of a part, it's a part of our identity, I think, as
And always
interpreters.
in control. Don't we try to be always in control?
That
mean,
surprises me too. Yeah, I
yeah.
would have thought.
Huh,
Yeah.
that
But
is
exhaustion tied to self-worth.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectionism and what other people think,
Mm-hmm.
which is our job to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what other people think all the time.
Right.
Right. So that part of our brain is very well developed.
Hmm.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's interesting that nobody in our group claims being cool and unclear and uncommitted values. I think that's cool, actually. Like, so it sounds like most of us know what our values are as individuals, right? I think
Yeah,
that's
or at
pretty
least that's not the most in need of our attention, maybe.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Does this capture most people on here? Like, was one of these, I mean, half of us, it seems like this would have captured just about everybody, that one of these three would have been the ones that you're, like, one of the ones that each of us is working on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that self-doubt supposed to, because I'm very much this is I was raised in very much, that's my role. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do. There is nothing outside of that. So I know that I struggle with what I was raised, what I'm supposed to do. So I know that's a big, that's a big one for me. So I had to mark that one. But yeah, the exhaustion one. Yeah, the other two were very me also, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I had to make a note. Go ahead.
Interesting, like, realization, because I went into this, it's a workshop and it's for interpreting and we're getting CEU. So I'm thinking in my interpreter brain, interpreter Jonathan. And obviously the title of this is wholehearted. So it's like, it's me as a whole person. I was kind of almost shocked to be like, whoa, the things I scored low on are also the things I struggle with just as a human in my personal life. But like what I struggle with in my personal life and what I struggle with in my interpreter life are almost exactly the same. And that was a pretty cool realization, because I think in my head, I can kind of separate. I'm really good at compartmentalizing, like work Jonathan is not the same as home Jonathan, but really those are the same people. I'm the same person all the time. I struggle with anxiety at my job and in my home life, you know? I had an interesting realization. I think that's Brené's point. Like, we need to be living as whole people, not compartmentalized, split off personalities in different spaces, you know?
Mm. Do others relate to that? Thank you for that, Jonathan. Because thinking like we may struggle, we may feel like we struggle. Like I feel like I struggle with different things as an interpreter from in my personal life. But when it comes down to it, you're right. Like I think I would probably get the same results either way. Do others relate to that? That your challenges kind of show up similarly, or maybe in different ways, but that the challenges are the same in both areas?
I relate to
Any
that
thoughts
some. I
on
think
that?
also Jackie said in the chat, that is so interesting. I totally separate the two. So I just wanted to like get that into the discussion. For me, I think I do to an extent, but also I think that my work and personal have become this like blob. Like I don't think I separate work and personal in general, let alone enough to know if the struggles are the same. And when Brené was talking about that overworking can be like a way to be numb and be avoidant, just like any other, I was like, oh my God, like, yes. Cause I've been in the field for 3 years and I work on average about 50 hours a week. So I work full time, 40 hours and then add. And I was like, Brené, you're punching me in the face right now. Like, wow. And so I definitely think that like, even before I can figure out if work and life have the same struggles, I have to figure out when's work and when's life. And that's definitely something I struggle with.
That makes a lot of sense. I have to figure out when
For
it's
reference,
working.
I work full-time K-12. And so I have like a set time that I work in the day and then I pick up other stuff.
Wow.
I relate to overworking. I've notoriously always have overworked in interpreting. I get that feedback constantly that I need to do less. It's very hard. I find a lot of my identity in my job.
Me too. People are like, so tell me about yourself. And I'm like, oh, I'm an interpreter. Like that seems to be the primary focus of, I think, a lot of us. I'll speak for myself. It's definitely mine.
That was me. That was me for 17 and a half years. I worked. And then my mom had a situation April 28th where she had called me at 2 a.m. And I don't know if I was already signed up for this workshop. I don't remember when I signed up for the workshop. And she had a heart event and I had to rush her to the hospital. And I was full-time medical interpreter and I took a leave of absence. My family comes first. And that was the first time in 17 years that I took a back burner from my full-time position as a medical interpreter and said, I have to put my family first. And it was really hard because I've always put my patients, my work first. And it's been a struggle. It's been a real big struggle because I've always been them, and it's been my family. And since then, I've had lots of other issues with my children where they've needed me. And it's just been like a godsend that I've been home to where I've been able to take care of them. And I've been able to put my family first. So this book, this everything has just been a blessing. It's like it's all come together where I've been able to put things into perspective, where I've been able to put myself and my family first. For the first time, I haven't been overworked and been underworked. And I got to take a step back and realize that, wow, like my arm doesn't hurt and I don't have this pressure to do. I can see a bigger picture. And it's been an eye opener. It's been amazing. Yeah. So from my perspective as a mom and a daughter and interpreter, sometimes we have to put ourselves first without that shame and that guilt and the anxiety of, oh, are my patients taken care of? Now it's am I okay? Are they okay?
Can I add to what
Please.
was said? I also took a leave of absence, not for the same reason and probably not for as long, but one of the things that I had shame about because, you know, I have exhaustion as a status symbol was that it was maybe not going to be well received by others or supported. And I was just so wrong about that I think I assume that everybody sees the world like I do. Like, you know, if if you're not working as much as you can and making yourself available as much as the calendar appears that you should be or whatever, then it's not enough. And to be told whatever you can give is enough, and if you can't give anything right now, that's still okay, was like not the response I expected. And if I had known that that was going to be the response from others, not how I dealt with it personally, because I still struggle with that, but like the stories I told myself about what others were going to think or how they were going to be supportive or unsupportive were all really unfounded. And if I had realized the support I would get, I think I could have saved myself some heartache.
So thank you for sharing that, Emily, because your evidence, like the fact that you have checked that out, you tested the waters for us, and you're coming back to say people actually supported me and what I needed. And that's not always the case, but it is important for our brains to remember that that is a possibility too. We can often go to that worst case scenario of what people might think or feel or say. It's helpful to remember that especially the people who care about us likely care that we're doing what we need to do. Yeah, there's some great comments in the chat, and I love Ellie is offering Jackie, if you want to participate, type in more comments and she'll read them.
I've been in that position before, and I know that
love it.
people like don't always see the chat, so I just wanted to make sure she was included.
Thank you for that.
It's so empathetic of you, Ellie.
That's right. Ashley, I see you nodding along. I wondered if you were wanting to share anything.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how the pandemic really helped me slow down and gave me permission to not overwork. And that was such a blessing for me personally, just to notice how it feels in my body when I'm actually relaxed. You know, like I thought, oh, if I take 2 days off in a row, my body's relaxed. But then my circumstances were that I didn't work for 9 months during the pandemic. And then I really knew what relax felt like. You know, I can wake up whenever I want. I have no money to do anything, so I'm just going to garden, you know, and then it's like I spend hours in the garden, then, oh, I'm going to go take a nap, or I'm going to read, or I'm going to walk my dogs. And yeah, and ever since then, I know how good it feels. And so I think that's been really helping me not become a workaholic again. Although recently I did take on way too much work, but I feel it in my body. I'm like, oh, okay, I need to rein it in again. But I think that was so important for me to really feel it in my body, not to have it be this like concept that I'm striving towards, but to recognize my health, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional well-being, just how much it was, how much it shifted after that. Yeah. So I would recommend, and I think I wrote this in the class online, I'd recommend taking a month off if you can, like at least 3 weeks, go on a road trip, go to the beach, do a staycation. Like if you can, take time where you really disconnect from your responsibilities. I mean, 9 months was great for me, you know, can't do that every year, but yeah.
It's like you recalibrated your system. Yeah, there's a way that when we operate at this level for so long, it just becomes, we forget, and we aren't in tune with those feedback mechanisms that tell us when it's enough.
Yeah. And I got to this point where I could just keep summoning up energy to keep meeting the demand that I was putting on myself. And I thought, where is the end? Like, is there ever going to be an end, or am I just going to keep working myself to death, you know? And that's when I realized I can keep adding more to my plate and I can keep rising to meet those demands, but why? It doesn't feel good. I'm not enjoying it, you know? So we have unlimited potential to do whatever we want. So let's use that energy wisely.
Actually, I completely relate to that. Sorry, Bree, did I interrupt you?
I was just
Okay.
hearing.
I completely relate to that. And I think something that I had to learn to let go of was that, like, there will be things that go uncovered and won't have an interpreter there. And that really sucks. But there's nothing that, like, I as an individual person can do about that. Like, I can't take every single assignment that LinguaBee sends me, much as I'd like to. I can't. And so I had to really let go of, like, but they need an interpreter and I'm an interpreter. Like, what, they're going to go without. There's nothing that I individually can do about this systemic lack, So I have to sort of prioritize taking care of myself and making sure that it's better to miss a job that's being sent out than burn out and not be able to work at all. And then they lose an interpreter, period. So I definitely, that's one that I know logically, it's a little hard to implement emotionally, especially because I'm pretty young in the field. And so I have a lot of seasoned interpreters telling me to do what I'm doing, which is work and then take time off later. And so I'm really trying to take this time. I'm ending my K-12 contract next Thursday and I'm not going back. And so I'm really trying to take this time to, like, reorient, recalibrate, and figure out as a freelancer, how do I structure it so that I start on the right foot, that I don't work myself to death at the very, very beginning of my career.
Beautiful. Yeah, that to me speaks to the values piece that you were mentioning earlier, Jonathan, and that suspecting that maybe a lot of us have a strong sense of our values. And when we do, we can then recognize, like, is the ways that is how my life is structured helping me to show up in line with those values, or is it making it harder for me to show up in line with my values? And I know when I'm overworked and overwhelmed and stressed, I'm not the kind of friend, I'm not the kind of parent, I'm not the kind of person that I want to be in the world.
Yeah.
So that helps me to stay calibrated.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot, Ellie. I don't know how old you are, but I'm also young in this field. You're 25. Yeah, I'm 30. And I'm about 4 years in. So we're very young. Yes. 4 years in. And I remember hitting 30. I went through a little depression period right before hitting 30. And I think it's because the number changed to 3. But I had this realization that, like, oh my God, I'm a limited person. I'm limited. When you're young, you think you can do everything. And I remember having this realization that, like, I need to pick the things that I truly care about and do those things. And so even with hobbies, I had to pick, like, I can't do all of them. So pick music and snowboarding and the things I really want to try right now. But I just really related to what you said about, I too I think a lot of interpreters get into this because we like helping and we feel that we must go and fix language deprivation for every deaf person, and we must be their access for everything all the time. And I've burnt out already in this field. I've gone through many cycles of burnout, and you just have to get to a place where you realize that you can't do everything. And it's way more important to take care of yourself and try to live from that place. Because then then the thing that I have to give is higher quality, and it's myself. It's not this burnt out, frazzled, panic attacked person that shows up to your assignment and interprets frantically. It's like, nobody wants that. So but it's difficult like that. I had a counselor when I was younger explain the longest distance, or the longest 12 inches in the universe, is the 12 inches from your head to your heart. It's that we know it, but we don't know it, not yet. Like, we're trying to figure it out. And yeah, I just really relate to that. So thanks for sharing.
I definitely relate a lot back to what you just said. So absolutely.
That quote is amazing, Ellie.
Also, I shared
could
a
read
Parks
it
and
out
Rec
loud.
quote in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Don't
it's Swanson all the way.
I love it. Don't half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing.
So
That's gonna be you might see that on the Instagram for this.
That's great.
So true. Oh, I'm curious. So this talk of priorities, values, identity, and how those things intermingle makes me think about just our ability to say yes or say no to things. And I hear a lot from interpreters, and I definitely struggle with saying no and have had to do a lot of work around saying yes when I mean yes and saying no when I mean no. Where do you feel like that comes into this conversation of identity and of prioritizing and of not overworking ourselves? What makes it hard to say yes or no? Or what do you find in that, Catherine?
Oh, can I please?
Please, yes.
So because I'm older than dirt, but I took this career and I started it as like my midlife crisis career. So I've only been doing it for a couple of years. But I just got my BEI a couple months ago. So when I announced that on Facebook, all of a sudden, like every agency in the St. Louis area went, oh, hey, you can, we have this, we have all of this. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Y'all, I'm old and I'm tired. I can only, so for me, it was like, I had to realize at this age that I am too old to be doing all of this and all of those jobs. So I've got the K through 12 during the day. And then I realize every time I get an email, I'm really excited, but I have to go, hold on, let me check my calendar. Is this feasible? Is it possible? So I'm like seeing it. I realize that, oh, I have to grab absolutely everything. But then I'm also of that, I am really old and need to be in bed by 8 o'clock. I want to do it and I want to help and I want to do all the things. And I want to grab the job at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And because I don't want that feeling, thanks, Ellie, of the whole, somebody's going to go without, and I just got this and I want to do all the things. So it's a struggle. I've got the two, what can I logically do, but how can I take on more? So I'm old and but I don't have that burnout yet because I've only been doing it for a few years. So I'm not there yet, but it's that logic realization of bedtime's at 8 o'clock. Y'all need to stop. Just stop. Just take on what I can. And so I'm trying to balance that.
Please, Jackie.
Thanks for being patient with me. I didn't want to be too distracting. It's so funny because for me, like I struggle with boundaries in my personal life, but when it comes to work, I have like ridiculously concrete boundaries. So I'm like, I work 20 hours and that is it. And I have jobs sent to me all the time. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to do it. Like, is it worth, it's not even the money. It's like, or the time or the helping. It's like, my body is like, no, now the girls are coming in, sorry. A little roar action for you guys. But it's just like, I'm like, no, I don't like that. I cherish that alone time and the moment that I can reset and do things that bring me joy. So I'm just like, no, I'm at 20. And I feel bad sometimes because it's like, I'm not helping my coworkers when, we're queuing. I work VRS. We're queuing and I could go and help them. I work from home. I really could go help them. But for me, it's just like, nope, I have these ridiculous boundaries that I just am so inflexible with. So I think that's something like, it's like the complete opposite end of the spectrum, but it's too far. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I need to go back a little bit more towards being a little bit more flexible with those boundaries, but still maintaining that self-care.
I don't know that anyone can make that decision for us, though, that, you saying it's too far says to me that maybe you're noticing that there's a value that you're not quite in line with there, like that you're noticing a value that's getting stepped on. And it sounds like part of that is helping out your coworkers or caring about their experience. But also we know that we're not going to put out every fire ourselves, right? And your ability to hold those clear boundaries. One of the things that I love that has come out from Brené Brown's research is that she says the research shows that the most compassionate people are also the most boundaried. And she said that blew her away when she saw that showing up in the research, that it seemed counterintuitive that the person who may be very, very strict and clear with, this is what I can do, this is what I'm not going to do, is actually the person who has the most emotional capacity left to say, and I really care, and I hear you, and I, I'll give what I can give. Yeah. Yeah, Jackie says you have the space. This is an interesting conversation. Anybody else about boundaries or yes
In reference
and
to
no?
like saying no and that kind of thing, it's funny because on the one hand, obviously we say yes to a lot of work and picking up all this work, but it makes us have to say no to so many other things. Like, because I've picked up 50 hours a week of work, I can't go to the trivia night, and I can't go to the bar, and I can't go to the, after school event that my coworkers were having, and I can't do this and I can't do this. And so I feel like in saying yes so much, it causes me to have to say no a lot. And I wish it was the other way around. I wish it was in saying no, it gives me the opportunity to say yes. So I would love to be able to get there someday. Don't know how I'm going to do it, but that'd be good.
It does. I think this is a really helpful point, is that to recognize any time we're saying no to something, we are saying yes to something else. Always. And anytime we're saying yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So if I'm saying, just like Jackie was saying, I work 20 hours a week. So once I get to that limit, I'm saying no to work because I'm saying yes to my alone time. I'm saying yes to my children. I'm saying yes to my, whatever it is that I need to be saying yes to. So that can be a powerful part of this, developing our no skills, can be recognizing what it is we're choosing instead. I don't know if that speaks exactly to what you were saying, Ellie, but just made me think of that. Is that in line?
Yeah, definitely.
Emily, did you come off mute? Yeah, please.
I did. It's probably repeating the same thing, but with different words. But a friend of mine who's been helping me with my crisis has given me some words of advice that I repeat in my mind sometimes. And she's like, you know what? If you're all in, or if you're in, then be all in. She's like, it's either a hell yes or a hell no. Like, just decide which it is. And that's been really helpful to me, because I think I've been like in this limbo in between, like, I'm going to say yes to all these things, but I'm not really giving it my all. And then that's where the dissatisfaction comes in, or the troubles are getting caused, when really, if I had just said no, and not just no, not hell no, but you know what I mean? Like, just a firm no, because I'm setting boundaries to a few things, freeing up my ability to be a hell yes to the things that I really need to prioritize and give those my all. And it's kind of like the comment that was already said about don't try to half-ass two things, because I think that's what I've been doing for years. And I delusionally thought that I was doing an adequate job at everything until it was brought to my attention that I wasn't, and that was hard to hear. But it was also eye-opening that I could probably do things a little bit differently and get so much more out of it, and also benefit others so much more than I had been, even though I thought I was doing an adequate job of that. I really wasn't. So anyway, thank you for all your things. And I probably just repeated what's been said, but in words that helped me to process it.
That's so helpful about this. I feel like when we come together and we can get sometimes just one different way of hearing something, like really, makes sense. And I love what you said. I think I've heard a saying before, like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Meaning just like, and I have teenagers and one 20-year-old. And so we talk a lot about consent. And since they were probably, just before the age of like when that becomes a thing, I wanted them to know about what it means to really want to engage with someone else, either in like physical touch kind of ways or romantic ways. And that you're looking for a loud and enthusiastic yes, or you're looking to feel a loud and enthusiastic yes. If it's like a maybe that would be okay, that's a no. That just means no. and taking that, like, can we take that into our own lives, like, you know, outside of a sexual or romantic context, but like in our work life, to say, or, you know, or in our personal life, to say, when someone asks me to do something, can I really check in with myself? I think it was Catherine, you that said that you're in the habit of saying, let me check my calendar, and just buying ourselves a little bit of time to check in with our gut and with all of our faculties.
And just take
Yeah.
that moment to breathe. The job isn't going anywhere. Just take that momentary pause I need that visual. I need to be able to look at it. And that way then I can think, is this even possible? Why do I want to take this job so bad? Do I, you know, just that pause.
Do you all know the Marie Kondo method of decluttering your life, only keeping the things in your life that bring you joy? I think this is a really good practice for recalibrating that discernment within ourselves, where you take an item physically in your possession, you hold it and you look at it and you say, does this item bring me joy? And then she, I think, has 2 categories, yes and no, but I'm not so rigid. And so I allow for a third, which is like a maybe, you know? And this is how I decluttered my life and downsized my life with the physical things that I have in my life. So you hold it, does this bring me joy? Yes, that loud, enthusiastic yes, goes in the yes pile, right? So it could be like your clothes, you're getting rid of clothes. And then you hold it, you're like, no, definitely not. Haven't worn this in years. I don't even know if this fits, whatever. That's in the no pile. And then you have the maybe pile. You put that in the middle. And the no's you get rid of, the yeses you keep, and the maybes you put in a box, or if it's clothing, you can like turn the hanger around the opposite way. And then in a month, you take them back out again and you look at them and it's a yes, maybe, or no. And it's so interesting how allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling in that moment frees you. And so the next time you look at the same shirt that before you were like, oh, but there's so much, I remember I wore this shirt this one time. Like you look at it and you're like, no, I don't want that anymore. And it's so clear because you fully accepted who you are and how you feel in that moment. Yeah, I think this can really help recalibrate. Like, is it a yes or is it a no? And the maybe pile gets smaller and smaller. You don't put as many things there anymore because you know. Yeah.
I love that. I love bringing that into this conversation too. And there was a part of that I was just thinking about, something else that she says. About thanking the object after, if you're getting, well, even if you're keeping it, but especially if you're getting rid of it, that there's like gratitude involved in recognizing how that item has served you, or the purpose that it played, or whatever. And that applies the same to everything else in our life that we're saying yes or no to. Like even the things that we're saying no to, can we find, it's not just about like being positive, but really genuinely internally finding the space of like, oh, I'm being offered work, or I'm being offered opportunities, and I also feel really clear about my values and my priorities, and I'm going to say no, but with this gratitude. Yeah. This is so beautiful. We're coming to the last 2 minutes of our time together. I'm on my way to a soccer game too, so I got all ready because I'm just going to run out when we get done, not to play, to watch, to cheer. Any last comments here? Anybody anything that you wanted to say when you came that you haven't shared yet?
I'll share something. One of the quotes I took away was, she said, you learn to swim by swimming. And so learn to courage by couraging. And that's something I took away. Like the only way to make progress in all this is to practice it. And so I look forward to looking for ways to practice living wholeheartedly in my life.
Jonathan, thank you for sharing that. I overlooked that quote, and I love that so much. You learn to courage by couraging. That's a beautiful one to end on. And Jamie, I am with you. I have a child who needs to Marie Kondo their room, and maybe that will be our next group. It's like support group for parents whose children's rooms are out of control.
Yes, I just went
Actually,
over. I
actually-
knocked on her room at 3 o'clock and I was like, hey, I am on the phone until 8 o'clock. That room needs to be, I need to be like a path to your bed by 8 o'clock. And at 7 o'clock, there was no path to her bed. So I just need to like start pitching stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Ashley, I
not
really
very
appreciate
well.
What are
the
the
incorporation.
consequences? You know, Brené Brown, what are the consequences? Did you explain the consequences?
I told them, I'm like, I bought the book. I have it on audio. You all can, I even had it playing in the car when I was dropping them off at school. Like you guys can listen to this book with me.
It's a family endeavor.
Yes, they need it too. It's encouraging and loving, and it's a family thing.
Yeah. Her next book is out, The Atlas of the Heart, and there's
I
an
bought it.
HBO series. So that's my plan for our next CEU offering is, I think, to watch the series just because that's more, engaging and you could read along with the book. Okay, so just a moment about CEUs. I see your question, Emily. There is no deadline for the CEUs, which for some people is challenging because they need like a hard deadline to get something done. And for others, it's really nice because I just operate under the guise that we all have our own timelines for things. Because this is an online course, it's structured that way that it's there. And so when you complete all the things on there, and saying all the things, meaning, the journaling kind of reflection opportunities that are in there. I just want to make a note out loud that you don't have to write all your reflections in the comments, but you're certainly welcome to because it's a nice place to interact, but it's not required. You can do as much of this work in private as you want, but once you're done with your reflections and you've taken in this discussion, and then the last piece is just to turn in the evaluation and those kinds of things, then CEUs will be awarded after that. Yeah. Any other questions about
I
that?
overlooked that. That's on your website, right? Is it the course, that coursework's on your website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get to it through either of my, actually, if you're getting the emails that I sent today and yesterday, there's a link in there to your portal. So it'll take you straight there.
So the
Yeah, or
reflections
just
are, for lack of a
email.
better term, optional insofar
They're
as
not-
that, like, they don't have to be posted.
They're not optional to do, they're optional to post.
You
Yeah.
must
Okay, got it.
grow. You must reflect.
You must reflect. Required reflection.
I'm good.
That. Yes, that. You can share as little or as much of them as
Okay,
you want.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you all for this. It's so good. This fills my heart to see you and share this space. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
It was great to meet everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Be safe, everybody.